There is a specific physical sensation that remains locked in the deepest vaults of our nervous system, a sensation that represents the absolute pinnacle of human safety. It is not the feeling of a warm bed or a locked door or a hug. It is the feeling of vibration. It is the rhythmic, mechanical hum of an engine traveling at 60 miles per hour, felt through the fabric of a backseat cushion, while the rest of the world is pitch black. You are 7 years old. It is late at night, perhaps 10 p.m., which feels like midnight to a child. You are strapped into the backseat of your parents' car, a sedan or a minivan that smells faintly of old coffee, air freshener, and the specific metallic scent of the seatbelt buckle. Outside the window, the world is a terrifying, chaotic void of darkness and rushing wind. But inside, it is a pressurized capsule of peace. This is the hook of our lives, the moment we realize that we didn't have to be in control to be safe. We just had to trust the people in the front seat. Do you remember that specific surrender? The act of letting your head fall back against the headrest or bunching up a jacket to make a pillow against the cool glass of the window? In that moment, you were a passenger in the truest sense of the word. You had no responsibilities. You didn't need to know the directions. You didn't need to watch the gas gauge. You just had to exist. This environment created a magic circle of isolation. The car was a moving universe, a spaceship traveling through the vacuum of the night. The dashboard lights in the front, those glowing green or orange dials, were the navigation computers, and your parents were the captains. Seeing the silhouette of your father's head, steady and calm, or your mother's hand adjusting the radio dial, gave you a feeling of invincibility that no amount of money or status can buy you as an adult. It was the certainty that someone else was handling it. We all share this memory of the audio landscape. The sound of the tires on the asphalt was a white noise machine, a shh sound that lulled your brain into a trance state. It was the sound of progress. It was the sound of going home. And in that trance, your mind was free to unlock a level of imagination that is almost impossible to access now. You weren't just looking at the dark, you were projecting your dreams onto it. The back seat was an incubator for the soul. It was where you processed the day, where you thought about the movie you just saw, or the family party you just left. It was a decompression chamber where the overstimulation of the world was filtered out by the tinted glass, leaving only you and your thoughts safely cocooned in steel and velocity. Let's talk about the temperature, because that is a universal touchstone. It was usually cold outside, but the heater in the car created a microclimate of dry, cozy warmth. That contrast, the cold glass against your cheek versus the warm air blowing from the vents, is a tactile memory that signals protection. You were separated from the elements by a thin layer of engineering, and that separation felt like magic. You could see the rain lashing against the window, streaking horizontally because of the speed, but you were dry. You could see the snow swirling in the headlights, mesmerizing and chaotic, but you were warm. This feeling of being in the storm, but not of the storm, is the definition of childhood security. It taught us that we could face the darkness as long as we had a shell. And for those few hours on the highway, that 1998 Toyota or Ford was the strongest shell in the universe. We didn't care about the make or model. We didn't care if the paint was chipping or the engine made a weird noise. To us, it was the vessel that carried our family through the night, a chariot of fire and steel that asked for nothing in return but our trust. The hook of this experience is also rooted in the absence of time. In the back seat, time did not exist. There were no clocks you could see. There were no deadlines. The journey was measured, not in minutes, but in songs on the radio, or in the rhythmic passing of landmarks. Are we there yet? It wasn't just a complaint. It was a genuine philosophical question. We were suspended in a state of transit, floating between point A and point B. This suspension allowed us to drift into a hypnagogic state, half awake, half asleep, where the boundaries between reality and dreams blurred. You might close your eyes for what felt like a second, only to open them and see that the scenery had completely changed. This teleportation effect was part of the magic. We surrendered our perception of time to the driver, confident that we would arrive exactly when we were supposed to. That trust is something we grieve for today. We miss the luxury of not needing to know what time it is. We miss the luxury of being cargo. Finally, the hook connects us through the feeling of invisible connection. Even if everyone in the car was silent, the connection was deafening. You knew without looking that your sibling was asleep next to you. You knew your parents were awake in the front. This physical proximity, trapped in a small metal box, hurtling through space, created a bond that didn't need words. We were a unit, a team, a single organism moving through the night. The vibration of the car traveled through the chassis and into all of our bodies simultaneously, syncing our heartbeats to the RPM of the engine. We felt a sense of belonging that was absolute. You weren't just a passenger, you were a piece of the whole. And as you stared out into the void, watching the red tail lights of the cars ahead, you felt a profound sense of peace. You were moving forward, you were safe, you were together, and in the grand, scary scheme of the universe, that was all that mattered. As the car settled into the long, straight rhythm of the highway, the window became a movie screen. This is the rising action of our backseat memory, where our imagination began to interact with the world passing by. We all played the same games, didn't we? The most universal one was the runner. You know exactly who I'm talking about. You would look out the window and imagine a ninja or a skateboarder, or a super fast version of yourself running alongside the car. He would jump over the driveways, grind on the guardrails, and dodge the oncoming traffic signs. This wasn't just boredom. It was a sophisticated exercise in physics and storytelling. You projected your own avatar onto the blurred landscape, conquering the obstacles that the car simply drove past. The runner was your spirit guide, a manifestation of your limitless energy contained within a stationary body. Watching him flip over the power lines gave you a rush of adrenaline, a secret action movie playing out in your head that no one else in the car knew about. This shared hallucination connects us all. It proves that we were all dreamers, finding magic in the mundane blur of concrete and grass. The visual language of the night drive was hypnotic. The streetlights were the metronome of the journey. Flash, flash, flash. The rhythmic amber glow would wash over the back seat, illuminating your hands and your legs for a split second before plunging you back into darkness. This strobe light effect created a mesmerizing pattern that lulled us deeper into our daydreams. We remember the specific color of those high-pressure sodium lights, that sickly warm orange that feels nostalgic even now. We watched the power lines swooping up and down between the poles, tracing the sine wave of electricity that powered the sleeping towns we passed. We watched the moon, marveling at how it seemed to follow us, a loyal guardian in the sky that never got left behind no matter how fast Dad drove. These visuals were the screensaver of our childhood, a loop of motion that allowed our minds to wander into the deepest corners of our imagination. We weren't scrolling through phones, we were scrolling through the world. Then there was the rain. If it started to rain, the rising action intensified into something cozy and cinematic. We all remember watching the droplets race across the window glass. You would pick one raindrop as your racer and bet against another one. Come on, little guy, you can make it. You watch them merge, grow heavy, and then streak violently across the glass, distorted by the wind speed. This micro-drama on the surface of the window was incredibly gripping. It was a study in fluid dynamics and gravity, performed for an audience of one. The sound of the tires hissing on the wet pavement changed the audio landscape, adding a white noise layer of shh that felt like a blanket being tucked around the car. The lights of the oncoming traffic would smear across the wet glass, turning the world into an impressionist painting of red and white streaks. In those moments, the world outside looked chaotic and wet and cold, which only made the dry warmth of the back seat feel more miraculous. You felt a deep gratitude for the roof, for the glass, for the seals on the doors. You were in a submarine navigating the ocean of the night storm. We also engaged in the silent observation of other lives. You would pass a house near the highway with its lights on, and for a split second, you would see a window. Maybe you saw a blue TV glow, or a person standing in a kitchen, or a Christmas tree. In that fraction of a second, your mind built an entire life story for them. Who lives there? Are they watching the same show I watch? Are they happy? This feeling of The realization that everyone has a life as complex as yours was born in the back seat. We were voyeurs of the American night, witnessing tiny snapshots of humanity before speeding away into the dark. It made the world feel huge and mysterious, populated by millions of stories we would never know, connected only by the fact that we existed at the same time. The rising action was this expansion of your worldview. You realized that your house wasn't the only house, your town wasn't the only town. The highway was a river connecting endless islands of life, and you were floating down it, observing it all from the safety of your bubble. The motion itself was a drug. The gentle sway of the car as it changed lanes, the centrifugal force pushing you slightly into the door during a curve, these physical sensations were comforting. They were the sensations of being carried. We connect this to the primal memory of being rocked in a cradle. The car was a mechanical cradle, even the vibrations of the road texture changing. From smooth asphalt to the rhythmic thump-thump of a bridge crossing became a language we understood. We knew we were close to home, not by looking at a map, but by the feel of the road. We knew the specific bump of the highway exit, the specific turn radius of our street. Our bodies memorized the topography of the journey. This rising action wasn't just visual, it was somatic. It was the feeling of being transported by a force greater than yourself, a surrender to the momentum of the family unit moving forward together. The conflict of the night drive was not a battle against the world, but a battle against biology. It was the struggle against the eyelids. As the journey wore on, the hypnotic rhythm of the road began to work its heavy magic. Your head grew heavy. Your eyes started to burn with the specific, sandy feeling of exhaustion. But, and this is the crucial conflict, you didn't want to sleep. You wanted to stay awake. You wanted to see the world. You wanted to be part of the journey. You fought the sleep with a childish determination. You would widen your eyes, staring at the back of the front seat, trying to focus on the stitching of the fabric. You would pinch your own leg. You would change positions, trying to find a spot that was less comfortable, just to keep the dream world at bay. Why did we fight it? Because we had a fear of missing out. We felt that if we fell asleep, we would miss the magic. We would miss the arrival. We wanted to be conscious for the transition from away to home. This conflict between the desire to witness and the need to rest is a universal memory of childhood endurance. This section also introduces the front seat versus back seat dynamic. Through the gap between the headrests, you could see your parents. They were talking, but their voices were low, a mumble track that was designed not to wake you up. You strained your ears to listen. They were talking about adult things, bills, plans, family gossip, or maybe just quiet observations about the road. Did you see that deer? We need gas soon. Hearing your parents talk when they thought you were asleep was a secret thrill. You were a spy in the world of adults. You heard the tone of their voices change, softer, more intimate, stripped of the parent voice they used with you. This made you feel safe, knowing that the captains of the ship were communicating. But it also made you feel a slight sweet pang of exclusion. You were the cargo. They were the crew. You were safe because they were awake, but that meant you were separated from them by the barrier of consciousness. You were alone in the back seat, drifting into the void, while they navigated the reality. The physical discomforts of the back seat also became part of the conflict, but in a nostalgic way. The seatbelt digging slightly into your neck. The weird texture of the upholstery leaving a pattern on your cheek. The fact that your legs were too short to reach the floor, so they dangled or had to be tucked under you. Maybe you were sharing the back seat with a sibling, and there was the silent war for the armrest, or the invisible line drawn down the middle of the seat. Don't touch me. I'm not touching you. These minor conflicts were low stakes and intimate. Even the arguments were hushed, suffocated by the sleepiness of the car. We remember the feeling of our sibling's head accidentally falling onto our shoulder when they fell asleep, and the decision to push them off or let them stay. Usually, in the magic of the night drive, we let them stay. The conflict dissolved into a pile of limbs and blankets. We were puppies in a basket, squirming for comfort, but ultimately relying on each other for warmth. There was also the conflict of the darkness outside. As you drove through rural areas or long stretches of highway, the world outside disappeared completely. No streetlights, no houses, just absolute ink-black nothingness. This could be scary. Your imagination, previously filled with cool ninjas, might turn to monsters. What was out there in the dark? You felt the fragility of the car. You were a tiny bubble of light moving through a vast ocean of shadow. This fear, however, always circled back to trust. You looked at the back of your dad's head. He didn't look scared. He was just drinking coffee from a travel mug. If he wasn't scared, you didn't need to be scared. The conflict was resolved by authority. The car's headlights cut a cone of safety into the fear, and as long as you stayed inside that cone, the monsters couldn't get you. We learned to trust the machine and the driver to keep the chaos at bay. Finally, the conflict climaxed in the fake sleep. You know this move. You felt the car slowing down. You recognized the turns. You knew you were close to home, but you were so tired, so warm, so comfortable that you made a strategic decision. I am going to pretend to be asleep. You let your body go limp. You slowed your breathing. You closed your eyes, even though you were awake. This was a deception born of love and laziness. You wanted the payoff, which we will get to, but you had to earn it by feigning unconsciousness. You lay there, heart beating a little faster, hoping your eyelids didn't flutter, waiting for the car to come to a complete stop. It was a performance. You were playing the role of the sleeping child to prolong the feeling of being taken care of. You traded your agency for care. You chose to be helpless so you could be loved. The comeback is the auditory shift that signaled the end of the journey and the return to the sanctuary of home. The high-pitched whine of the highway wind died down. The road noise changed from a steady whoosh to a slower, crunchier texture. You heard the click, click, click of the turn signal, a sound that is etched into your soul. That rhythmic ticking was the sound of arrival. It meant you had left the anonymous world of the interstate and entered the specific, familiar world of your neighborhood. Even with your eyes closed, maintaining the fake sleep, you could map the journey. Left turn, a sharp curve, the bump over the pothole that they never fixed, the gravel crunch of the driveway. Your body swayed with the turns, knowing exactly which way to lean. This is the comeback to familiarity. You were no longer floating in space. You were tethered back to your coordinate. The soundscape of the arrival was incredibly specific. You heard the engine idle down, the RPM dropping to a low purr. You heard the shift into park, that mechanical thunk that shook the chassis slightly. Then the silence. The engine turned off. The sudden absence of vibration was jarring. The world stopped moving. In that silence, you heard the sounds of the cooling car, the tick-tick-tick of the contracting metal, the sound of the wind outside, which suddenly seemed louder now that the engine was off. You heard the front doors open, the ding-ding-ding of the key and the ignition door chime. These sounds are the soundtrack of safety. They meant you had made it. The mission was successful. The spaceship had landed. In this comeback phase, you felt a surge of home. Even the smell changed. When the car door opened, the air of the garage or the driveway rushed in. It smelled like wet concrete, or pine trees, or just your house. That smell bypassed your logic and hit your emotional center. You were back in your territory. The anxiety of the journey, the fear of the dark, the motion sickness, it all evaporated instantly. You were within the castle walls, but you maintained the ruse. You kept your eyes shut. You waited. This anticipation was delicious. You knew what was coming, and you wanted it more than anything. You wanted to be retrieved. You wanted the continuity of care to extend from the car seat to the bed. We also remember the muffled voices of our parents in this moment. You grabbed the bags. I'll get him. Shh, don't wake her. Being the subject of this conspiracy of care was the ultimate validation. They were organizing their efforts around your comfort. You felt important. You felt precious. In the harsh light of day, you might have been a messy kid who got in trouble, but in the dark of the driveway, you were a treasure to be transported. The comeback was the reaffirmation of your place in the family structure. You were the protected one, and let's not forget the feeling of the seatbelt release, the click of the buckle, The retracting zip of the belt across your chest, the sudden freedom. You were unstrapped. The pressure was gone. Hands were sliding under your arms and under your knees. You had to make yourself heavy to sell the fake sleep, but you also had to trust that they wouldn't drop you. That moment of being lifted into the air, weightless, floating, suspended in the darkness, was the peak of the comeback. You were rising above the earth, carried by the giants who loved you. It was a return to infancy, a return to total dependence, and it felt like heaven. The second rising action is the journey from the car to the bed. It is a short journey in distance, maybe 50 feet, but an epic journey in emotion. You are in your father's arms or your mother's. Your head is resting on their shoulder. You can smell their specific scent, dad's work shirt, mom's perfume, the faint smell of the car still clinging to their coats. You feel the cold night air hitting your face as you move from the garage to the house. A brief shock of reality before the warmth of the hallway envelops you. This transition is vivid. You feel the change in atmosphere. The house feels still and large and silent. You hear the floorboards creaking under your parents' footsteps. Creak, step, creak. It is a lullaby of structure. You are moving through the geography of your home, blindly, trusting the carrier to navigate the corners. This part of the story connects us through the physical sensation of the dangle. Your legs are hanging down. You are getting too big to be carried, and you know it. Your feet might bump against the door frame, or your parent might grunt a little with the effort. This adds a layer of bittersweet poignancy to the memory. You realize somewhere deep down that this is one of the last times this will happen. You are growing. The rising action here is the tension between your growing body and the shrinking window of childhood. You hold on tighter. You bury your face in their neck. You want to freeze this moment. You want to be small enough to be carried forever. We remember the sensory details of the hallway, the sound of the zipper on your jacket being pulled down, the struggle to get your arms out of the sleeves while remaining limp, the parents whispering, working together to undress you or just take off your shoes, the feeling of your shoes being pulled off, the cool air hitting your socked feet is a specific release. It symbolizes the end of the journey. You are no longer a traveler, you are a resident. You are being prepared for stasis. The care taken in these small actions, untying the laces instead of just ripping them off, is the language of love. It says, I value your comfort more than my effort. Then the destination, the bedroom. The air in your room smells like you. It smells like your toys, your laundry, your life. It is the center of your universe. Being lowered down, the slow descent from the height of the parent's arms to the surface of the mattress is the climax of this section. The mattress rises to meet you. It feels familiar. It molds to your body. You are home. The rising action settles into a profound stillness. You are safe in your tower. The monsters of the highway are miles away. The cold wind is locked out. You are in the heart of the sanctuary. But the scene isn't over. There is the tuck in. The blanket is pulled up to your chin. It is smoothed out. Maybe there is a kiss on the forehead, a hand brushing hair away from your eyes. These tactile ghosts haunt us in the best way. We remember the weight of the blanket. We remember the feeling of the presence leaving the room, the door clicking shut, but leaving a crack of light from the hallway. That sliver of light was the final promise. We are just outside. You are not alone. The rising action resolves into a state of perfect, suspended animation. Here is the payoff. Here's why this memory makes your chest ache when you think about it today. You are listening to this, and you are likely the one driving the car now. You are the one in the front seat. You are the one watching the gas gauge, checking the GPS, worrying about the bills, and scanning the darkness for deer. You have become the captain, and being the captain is exhausting. We look back at the back seat not just because we miss being kids, but because we miss the freedom from responsibility. We miss the luxury of trusting someone else so completely that we could fall asleep in a moving vehicle speeding through the night. The payoff is the realization that the safety we felt wasn't magic. It was labor. It was our parents creating a bubble of peace through their own vigilance. They were tired too. They were scared of the dark too. They had work in the morning too. But they swallowed all of that to make sure the backseat remained a sanctuary. They turned down the radio. They drove carefully. They carried us inside even when their backs hurt. The magic circle was constructed out of their sacrifice. Understanding this now as adults transforms the memory from simple nostalgia into profound gratitude. We realize that we were witnessing a superpower, the power to make a child feel safe in a dangerous world. When you look in your rearview mirror now, maybe you see your own kids back there. Maybe you see them playing on iPads, or sleeping with their mouths open, or watching the streetlights, and you realize, I am the memory maker now. I am the one creating the spaceship. I am the one keeping the monsters away. This is the circle of life. We leave the back seat so we can build it for someone else. But a part of us, the tired, anxious, dreaming part, will always be back there, curled up against the cool window, watching the rain streak by, waiting to be carried home. So, the next time you are driving at night, and the road is long, and the streetlights are rhythmic, allow yourself to feel it. Feel the hum of the engine. Look at the amber glow on your hands. And for a split second, let go. Let yourself be the passenger again. Remember the feeling of the fake sleep. Remember the sound of the turn signal. Remember that you were, and always will be, loved enough to be carried. That safety is still inside you. It is the fuel that keeps you driving.